There, Coach Patrick here from Endurance Nation, back with another weekly episode. This week, I'll be talking to you a little bit about what it means to make good winter fueling decisions. Training in the winter time is tough, not just from a logistical perspective, but also staying on track with how we feel as athletes, how we feel like we're really connected to our bodies, making sure that we're, sort of on this overall good trajectory, right? All this winter training is bonus. At the same time, we're sort of compromised by this nutrition challenge that we're all faced with, which is to say that the normal foods that we have available to us, like the healthy leafy vegetables, the greens, the veggies, they really kind of disappear. Like, unless you live in a particular part of the country or world where you have access to that type of stuff or have the money to have access to it, it's really hard to make sustainably healthy decisions across the course of your year. Not just from that external food as well, but also from a training perspective, which is a large part of what I'll be talking about today. So I brought you here, new background, to the supermarket. I love the supermarket. It's terrifying. Like, I look at the supermarket and I see all of these things on the shelves. Like, they're color coded for action. Like, look at this. I got the blue pill, like the Matrix, like the blue pill on this side, and I got the red pill on this side. Like, what do I choose? Which aisle do I go down? I think for me, like, the worst version of food shopping is going to a new supermarket, like traveling, going to a race and being like, ooh, just got to hit the supermarket and pick up that food. And then I go in and I'm like, oh man, this is a totally different layout. I don't know where anything is. I don't like it. Right. Yeah. For me, like, I think purgatory would be just like an endless supermarket aisle that had like the same thing, like all the same boxes of cereal or the same packages of stuff, and it would just like never change, and I could never get to the end of the aisle. But anyway, enough about me. Let's talk about you and some of these better winter fueling training tips. And the genesis for this episode simply comes from athletes who will come to me in office hours. We do office hours every Monday night, or in their coach space where we talk, those of you on the team and coach level. Just ask me questions about their training. They're trying to get a handle on why they're no longer seeing a progression through the winter in terms of their development. Now, it's worth talking a little bit about the out season, so bear with me just for a second. Our out season here inside Endurance Nation, 14 weeks long, whether you're just cycling, just running, or doing some form of multi-sport. And that those distribution of 14 weeks are set out so that we have 4 weeks of work and 1 week of testing. We repeat that cycle. And then the last one is 3 weeks of work and 1 week of testing. So we get sort of 3 weeks of testing and 11 weeks of work. And the progression across each of those weeks is adding an increasing amount of training load to your schedule, not training duration. Like, we're not just doing everyone's in zone 2 and every week we add 2 more hours of zone 2. So we start at 8 hours right now, right? Hey, and by the end, you're at like 32 hours a week of training. You're like, you're not a professional athlete. That's okay. So we use training intensity as the lever through which we increase your training stress, keeping you on a manageable schedule, allowing you to experience the adaptations that you want to have, and setting you up to move out into the regular season in a place where you can start adding volume and still continue to see progression and evolution as a successful endurance athlete. But in the wintertime, we want to be successful for these workouts, not because they're mission critical. We're still weeks or even months away from what our key race is, but simply because poor nutrition, even during these winter months, can have a significantly deleterious consequence, a problem as it comes to your regular training. In other words, it puts you in a position where you start to experience worse workouts, worse recovery. You start to experience lower numbers, and that gets inside your head as well, like that lack of confidence. So just in general, things are sort of trending down. We're kind of now like wah, 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 space, and it's hard to turn that ship around when we're there. So one of the ways that we can avoid getting into that space, assuming that you're following a good program, that there's plenty of opportunities for work and rest, just like we do inside Endurance Nation. And we take a look at the nutrition side, which is where I will often start with athletes, just to understand a little bit more about how they're taking care of their body, both pre, during, and post these winter training sessions, right? So number one of the reasons why we want to look at nutrition here in the winter, even though we're nowhere near a race, is that this is a great time to build healthy habits. We don't have the demands of volume. And by demands on volume, I mean caloric, metabolic demands that make you just go irrational when you're in an aisle full of carbohydrates. Normally, you'd be impervious to the lure of the snack aisle. But after a day where you've done 5 or 6 hours of training, you want to devour that whole thing. And quite frankly, you might try. And also, I really wouldn't blame you. That's okay. But ideally, we're doing a better job of training and preparing ourselves nutritionally so that when we are in the supermarket tempted, that, from an internal perspective, we're actually in a good spot. Maybe I want that sort of like, mentally, but I don't need it biologically, metabolically, because I've taken care of myself overall. This is also a great time for us with our free time to do other things like Pick up new meals, new recipes to add to our repertoire. Try different types of foods, right? Experiment with our training nutrition. Very low cost, and we only got hour and a half long sessions. Easy for us to try something different, see what the impacts are, and not worry so much. We got 24 hours between training sessions where we can adjust things and get back on track, as opposed to in season when more often than not, we only have 12 hours between training or maybe 18 hours max. That's a tight window and a really tough time for us to stay on track and remain confident in our ability to continue to progress over time. All right. So, number two, the more that you work, the more important that fueling becomes. This is important. People think a lot about the duration and say, it's only an hour. Why do I need to eat food? Why do I need a gel? Why do I need sports drink? Well, because we're doing a lot of work in that hour. That's not your average hour. Your average hour in season, when it's like a zone two session and we're preparing if zone one, zone two for this, ultra run that you're doing or something. It's important that we're fueling because we have this, big day ahead of you. But in general, we're not doing the type of work that burns through the stored glycogen, burns through that preparation, sort of that early phase of food and fuel that we have in our system so rapidly as we do when we're in the out season. So it's quite a bit of intensity, particularly on the bike. So what we want to do is make sure that we set yourself up for success by having the calories on hand. You don't have to necessarily be consuming them all, but I've got them located, not unlike the supermarket, right next to me when I'm on the bike or on the treadmill. If I need to eat something, I can because it's right there. It's not a decision of like, if I want to eat, I got to go find it. Like, where is it? I don't know. Like, if I go look for it, I'm going to lose 15 minutes. Like, why bother eating? I'm just going to run, even though this is going to be miserable and probably affect me downstream and even lead me to do something irrational, like eat half that apple pie when I get back because I'm going to be starving. Right. So we can avoid all of that by making sure we have that exercise nutrition on hand and that we're making conscious evaluations of where we are sort of from a stats perspective in terms of what we need. So, for example, I'm doing a run streak right now. I'm doing a lot of 2 mile runs. Don't need a lot of food or fuel on 2 mile runs. But every once in a while, I really haven't eaten for like 2 hours before that time comes for that 2 mile run. So I do need something. I've got my Cliff Blocks, I've got gels, I've got something that I can eat while I'm running and still be okay, which keeps me on track. Not that I necessarily needed to fuel that session to complete the session, but it helps me overall just to be a better athlete and to be in a better place human wise, right? Moving into the rest of my day. And it's an opportunity for me to practice that nutrition. Okay. Third bullet for you to think about is optimizing your nutrition outside of workouts first. So people will naturally be like, oh, I need to lose weight. I just won't eat while I'm exercising. I'll be burning calories and not replacing calories, which is like the double awesome winning. I'm totally winning. Yeah, totally. Sure. You should totally do that. Like, oh, you want to get like a degree? Why don't you go get a PhD? In fact, why don't you just study another subject on top of your core subject because you're already studying? So let's just do more because who needs sleep and you'll be fine. And at the end of the day, you'll have two. And that's awesome. Like, right? I know you're thinking like me, that's a nightmare. I get it. Some of you might be like some sort of like super smart person, like, Doogie Howser or Malala, like just get out there and just crush it intellectually. Most of us are just average human beings. And doing more is really hard. And so reducing our calories and also still expecting to be awesome at working out, not going to work out so well for you, right? So instead, optimize that nutrition outside of the training sessions. Keep your training session fueling normal, in other words, like you would during the race. And instead, let's optimize other things. Let's have a better breakfast. Let's have a better recovery shake. Let's have a better lunch and dinner. Let's make sure that we're doing good things outside of the training space to complement what we're doing inside the training space. So before you start just subtracting calories at the time when your body needs it, arguably the most, let me go from there. All right. All right. The next piece I want you to think about is about recovery nutrition. And so people will say, it's only an hour. Like, what do I need a shake for? What do I need protein for? Like, it wasn't that big of a session. Hey, your body's still working. Part of that recovery process is having an agreement with your body that it knows, hey, when I do work, I get recovery stuff. It's like a reward. It's like going for a nice walk with your dog. They behave, they get a little treat, right? Hey, nice job. That recovery shake is your nice job to the rest of you, to your quads, to your calves, to your back, to your abs, whatever muscles you may be using. I technically do not have abdominal muscles, so I would not be using them. Not sure why I even said them. But whatever it may be, my delts, right? Hey, my traps, whatever it may be, we'll use those, right? When we think about what it means to be healthy and successful, a part of it is repairing the muscles that we've broken down from this higher quality training. So it doesn't have to be crazy. We still want to have that recovery mechanism in place. So when we hit the winter training months, don't just eliminate that workout recovery. Instead, think about the portion size. So instead of having like a 16 or 20-ounce recovery shake, like the recovery shake of the gods, perhaps have a more rational sized or human sized one. Pick out a glass that you might give your kid and then put your shake inside that. Think about it. You make your recovery shake today, you could save it for 2 or 3 more days. Still good. Right. So change those portion sizes, but still do a good job of getting that protein into your body so you feel healthy and safe. Okay. Awesome. All right. Finally, last piece. Let's talk a little bit about this, the bonus side, your recovery fuel. And I think for me, this is really important. When I think about recovery fueling, for me in the wintertime, it falls into this really specific window for me. So, recovery fueling for me for these quality sessions is something that I think about doing the night before my next session. So, some of you might say, hey, it's preloading, you're preloading your workout. Not so much for me. It's making sure that tomorrow's workout is going to be successful as I exit this day. So my recovery fueling at night is an opportunity to take a look back over my day. What did I do well? What did I not do well? Where am I at? Right. And so what I'd like to think about on these nights when I want to make sure that I'm getting a good session in tomorrow, that I think about that recovery fuel. And what do I mean by a good session? So I mean like Saturdays and Sundays inside the out season of Endurance Nation are longer workouts. They're more challenging. During the week, not so much. Hour and 15 minutes. You can kind of get through them either way, but it's not something that I'm kind of going over the top unless it's sort of like a WTRL Zwift race, which, oh, dear sweet baby Jesus, don't make me do one of those again, right? Please don't invite me. They're so painful, so challenging. But for these weekend sessions, I do want to be ready. That means, so for my Saturday, Sunday sessions, that means I'm taking a step back. So Friday, Saturday nights, that's when I'm going into this sort of recovery fuel, not recovery nutrition, recovery fuel to get myself ready for that next session. So for me, it's generally like a protein-based shake. And so normally I would do, if it's weight control, I'm looking at protein with water and some ice as my evening dessert or shake. But before these other sessions, I might throw a banana in there. I might actually use some milk or some whole milk if you can handle the dairy stuff or whatever your dairy replacement might be, to make it a little bit more calorie rich to prepare you for that. You want to get this in about an hour to an hour and a half before it is you want to start winding down for the day. So your body has some time to process it, but it's going to set you up well. It goes into your system. It's going to reduce the amount of time you spend fasting overnight. It's going to keep you in a better place when we hit that quality session the next day. You're kind of starting a few steps ahead is the way I like to think about it. If we dive into that session, you're not already instantly starving right away in the morning, but instead you've got some extra calories and protein in the system to keep you going. So that's our episode about winter training and winter fueling for you. Just to recap, we talked about making long-term healthy habits, decisions that will, go into place now, sustain you across the course of the year. We talked about how more work means more importance on fuel. Can't skip that fuel. If you want to do more work, you've got to put more fuel inside your system. Optimizing your nutrition outside of your workouts first. Don't just eliminate stuff inside the session. Keep what you know works there. Let's evaluate the rest and make sure the rest is in a good place. Optimize that first. Then we get to the workout stuff. And then we talk a little bit about the recovery stuff. We definitely want the nutrition to be good. We can just reduce those portion sizes as we head into the winter. So we're still keeping those healthy habits in place. We're just reducing them to fit the scope of what it is we're doing in the winter. All right. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please share it with someone who you think might benefit from it. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing y'all next week.